Hey, and welcome to this very first video on the subject of being an art entrepreneur, a creative entrepreneur. And in this video, I'm going to try to answer the question of what is a business? And we will take this question much further in future videos, but I'm trying to keep each one of these videos really, really short and digestible. I'm Alan. Nice to meet you if we haven't met previously. I hope you'll check out some of my other videos. So there are a handful of things that we have to really attack in order to have a solid creative business, and they involve things like time management and branding and marketing and salesmanship and money management. I've said this before in a previous video, and I have not defined all of these ideas. What I want to do is I want to define just being in business today. And then in our next video, I want to begin the process of talking about time management. I suspect the time management videos will take me a long time to complete because I have a lot to say about this idea of time management. If I were to point at the secret of my own success as a creative entrepreneur, I would say that it's entirely about time management, and I can't wait to share those thoughts with you. But this is the subject today. These are the questions I want to answer today. What's the difference between entrepreneurship and capitalism? What is a business? And what do you have to do to make money as a creative? I want to answer every one of these questions for you today. So the first question, what's the difference between entrepreneurship and capitalism? As simply put as I can make it, an entrepreneur is someone who leverages ideas in order to make money, and a capitalist is someone who leverages money to make money. I get cracked up sometimes when I see artists claiming to be capitalists because they're not. They have ideas. They're trading their time and their labor and their ideas for money. They're not trading. They're not giving money to somebody else to make money for them, which is what a capitalist does. And it has been my experience that the majority of capitalists don't know anything about anything. They're just throwing money at the wall and waiting for people to give them money back. And God bless them, because in a lot of cases we wouldn't be able to get started without leveraging their capital, without leveraging their money to get started. But there are plenty of ways that an artist can get off the ground without needing capital. And I think that the basics are just this, can you utilize what you know as a creative in order to solve other people's problems? And that's really what it boils down to. Solving other people's problems creatively is the reason that people will give you money. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So you're a creative and you've decided that you want to go into business, or you're working towards the goal of starting a creative business. The question becomes, what is a business? Well, a business is either you as an individual, sole proprietor, or you as a small team of people, solving people's problems and leveraging this ability to solve people's problems in exchange for them to give you money. This could be as simple as, the problem is I want a really cool t-shirt that identifies who I am as a fan of cryptids, which is something that I do a lot, is sell t-shirts that have funny, cryptid designs on them or whatever. And it could be something as complicated as something else that I do, which is design a branding and marketing strategy for a larger corporation in order for them to try to be perceived by the larger world in ways they want to be perceived, so that people will give them money. I'm solving a problem for them by helping tell their story, by helping them communicate in ways that make other people excited about what they're doing. And these are all things that we can do as creatives in order to use our creativity to make money. But now the interesting thing about the two examples that I just gave you is they are two completely different markets. One is I'm trying to sell a specific product that I've made to a specific individual. And the other is I'm trying to make products for a corporation. So I would call one a customer and I would call the other a client. And a lot of times your creative business really needs to hone in on one or the other. In my particular situation, what I've done is I've crafted, I've been doing this for a really long time, but I've crafted ways that I interact with customers and I've crafted ways that I interact with clients so that I can best meet the needs of either in a given situation. I would actually say that my interactions with customers are positive, but I haven't developed that particular part of my business as well as I've developed the other part of my business, which is working with clients. Sometimes with businesses, we incorporate them, and which involves a legal thing where you turn your business into an entity, and that entity has to pay taxes and do lots of other legalese kinds of things in order to maintain its status. And the reason that we might want to incorporate our business is for liability issues. Many creatives don't need to incorporate, but let's say your creative business is physically located somewhere where someone might walk in and slip and break their arm. Well, in that scenario, I would unquestionably incorporate, because when they slip and break their arm, you want them to sue the company. You don't want them to sue you as an individual, because if they're suing you as an individual, they can take, your car, your house, your assets. But if they're forced to sue the company, they can only take the company's assets. And the company may not have a lot of assets. A lot of times companies just exist as a legal document in order to disperse the funds that the company brings in. And that can really protect you and the company if you incorporate, if there's even the potential for there to be any sort of liability issue. Now, on the other hand, if your particular the particular thing that you're selling or whatever, you don't perceive the possibility of a liability issue coming up, then I wouldn't bother with it. And we'll talk more in the future about what kinds of things that you can do in order to set up a sole proprietorship or whatever you might want to do if you want to be known as or collect money with a particular legal name or something that isn't your own name. But none of that really matters. The biggest issue with incorporation, the reason that you might want to turn your business into a company, is if there is a liability issue, and there are a handful of different ways to do that. So the bottom line of this conversation, though, that I'm hoping that you understand as a result of this conversation, is that in order to make a living as a creative, you, the creative, need to solve people's problems, whether the individual or the client. And that is how you make money as a creative. And furthermore, whenever you get into a situation where you are selling products to either individuals or clients or, corporations or whatever, customers or clients, you want to make the most of that interaction so that you might be able to leverage it to make more of it in the future. I'll give you an example, a really, really easy example. When I was 22, I was experimenting with the idea of recording audio in a PC as opposed to a Mac. People were already doing some limited digital audio on a Mac. We were to the point to where there were like 8-channel systems available for the Mac by the time I was 22 years old. But the idea of recording audio on a PC was pretty gosh darn new because there just weren't the professional tools available in terms of sound cards and processing available for the PC at an affordable rate the way that there was on a Mac. This would have been the very early mid-90s. And so, but I'd been experimenting with the PC side of things right when the tools first came out, because I owned a PC and I didn't own a Mac. And I was having a conversation with a guy that I met at a jazz club about this subject. That he and I chatted about a bunch of things. When I met him, I was interested in his jazz playing. I was trying to learn how to be a better jazz player. He was interested in Star Trek. We started talking about Star Trek. At some point in the conversation, I told him about my interest in recording audio on a PC and that I'd been experimenting with it. Well, a few days later, he was talking to a guy who ran one of the larger recording equipment boutiques in the greater Atlanta area. And that guy was telling him that he was trying to find someone who knew something about recording in the PC as opposed to recording in the Mac to use as a salesman for that. And so this guy that I was talking to mentioned me. And I ended up working at this recording boutique in Atlanta as a result of this conversation, which sounds like a terrible job. I'm just selling audio equipment, who cares? But because I was at this very, very high profile audio boutique and it was fairly new to the market, I got in a situation where I was selling audio equipment to a lot of noteworthy personalities around Atlanta, including some radio stations and things, and radio stations were still a thing at that time. And I started making a lot more money, not only from consulting and working with these people, but everyone started knowing my name. And that proliferation of my name around town and the association with me being a guy who knew what he was doing made it easier for me to do other things. I leveraged that job to get other jobs. I only sold audio equipment for, a year, 2 years, tops, and then went on to doing other things that were more important for my career. But leveraging the opportunity to move into another space was what I had to do in order to get there. What I find from most young creatives, and I interact with a lot of them because of my job as a professor of digital art, what I find from a lot of young creatives is that they want to get a super cool job when they first get out of college, instead of taking a lesser job that's remotely in field, so related to the field, and then using it to leverage to get into better positions. But every time that I speak to anyone who is high up on the food chain in any system, one of two things happened. They either had a relative or a friend or somebody who let them sort of skip the line and move up the food chain faster, or they took menial jobs in field and used them to leverage their way up the food chain. I've talked to people who were like janitors for film shoots and things, who eventually became directors. And that's really what I want you to think about, is how can you take a job and leverage it in order to create an opportunity for yourself.